pixel remasters of Final Fantasy 1-6 are now here for PlayStation and Switch. But are they worth the money?
You better be worth the money, every last gil.
On Switch, we're looking at £65 for the entire bundle. As much as I'd love a physical copy of these pixel remasters, they've got a very limited physical release and are already no longer available, but I would have happily bought these again for a boxed copy.
Shut up and take my money!
These pixel remasters have been pretty fantastic on PC, and the console versions are going to have even more updates and features. Fingers crossed, these updates will also be patched in on PC. I've got a few nitpicks I'll get into, but overall they're good Final Fantasy remasters. In the past, we've been sold some really dodgy versions, like the infamous Final Fantasy VI port where they butchered the original art style and tiles didn't even line up correctly.
You serious?
But yeah, the pixel remasters this time are good. Hey, I'm trying to grow the channel, I'm trying to reach 1000 subs, so any help would be greatly appreciated. Thanks. Whether you're a veteran or completely new to these 2D Final Fantasies, there's a lot to enjoy, especially if you like suplexing trains. I'm going to run through some of the improvements, then I'll give my recommendations on which to play. So my favourite change with these remasters is the widescreen support. This is not some cheap stretching of the screen. These games have been rebuilt from the ground up with the screens extended for proper widescreen support. Doesn't sound like much, but alongside the updated visuals, it makes these games a lot more enjoyable to play. For one, you can actually see further, as well as take in more of the new background art in combat. The entire soundtrack of each game has also been redone. There's a handful of original music pieces I prefer, but it's hard to tell if that's just nostalgia kicking in. But in this new version of the Pixel remasters, you will be able to choose between original and remastered music. Those are the two big obvious updates, but there's plenty of little gameplay tweaks and quality of life changes too. In the original Final Fantasy 1 and 2, if you ordered more than one party member to attack a target, and that target dies before all of your party members get their attacks in, those extra attacks are wasted. But in the remaster, those attacks are now redirected to new targets. You can traverse all the worlds diagonally now, which you couldn't do in the originals. And quick saves anywhere are always a nice addition. Cloud saves too. While the loudest criticism in the community was originally the really narrow text font, Square listened to the feedback and now the console versions seem to have a much better font. There's also going to be boost features that let you lower the difficulty if you're into that, but what really interests me is that Square claims you can also adjust the difficulty to make it even harder, and add extra challenges. I like that. To be honest, a lot of my original nitpicks with the PC version have been ironed out and updated in this console version. There's still one thing that comes to mind though. When it comes to Final Fantasy VI, there was a lot of awesome extra content added on the Game Boy Advance version, and we don't see any of that here. It was genuinely good content that added a lot to the endgame. Of course, you can play through all 6 Final Fantasies in order, that's what I would do, but if you wanted to just dip your toes in and try one, the FF I'd recommend the most is number 6. It's my favourite 2D Final Fantasy and it's got a really strong story and cast of characters. In fact, it does not have a main character, just a cast of really strong characters. 6 manages to be the most light-hearted and serious at the same time. It deals with things I believe no Final Fantasy has touched on before, like suicide, and that's just because the world of 6 is just so hopeless, and it's all about rising above it. I think Final Fantasy V is a really fun one to play. It's got the best job system. You can assign your characters different jobs like Red Mage, Warrior, Thief, then level those jobs up and mix and match their abilities and come up with different combinations. 5 gets another really strong recommendation from me, really just to experience that job system in action. 4 is pretty cool too. You can't customize your characters as much as 5. All the characters have preset jobs, but they're really awesome and there's a classic story around these characters. When I think of classic Final Fantasy jobs like Dark Knight, Paladin, Dragoon, it's Final Fantasy IV that comes to mind. 3, like 5, has a big focus on the job system. It's good, but not quite as good as 5. Extra points if you played the MMO Final Fantasy XIV and raided the Crystal Tower. This is where it originates from. I think number 2 has got to be the Final Fantasy that's had the most reworks over time. This is the first Final Fantasy where Square gave you characters with names. They tried to level up their storytelling. It's worth having a gander at. You'll find a lot of first time appearances here for iconic things like chocobos and the monsters of the Final Fantasy universes, like behemoths. But if I'm being honest, 2 is probably my least favourite of the 6. And I think it's worth checking out the original Final Fantasy just to see where it all started. If you want to see my full opinions on each game, check out my Final Fantasy tier list. Play them all, but definitely make sure you play number 6. Peace for now.